Welcome to Run It Back, the home of your 20th ranked UConn men's basketball team. UConn comes in 13-4 now, 4-2 in the conference after a pretty easy sweep of Butler in an unusual home and home last week. Now, next up for the Huskies is Georgetown tonight inside Gamble Pavilion, 8:30 p.m., late tip on campus. Now, alongside Jacob Sondick, I'm Noam Watt. Today, we'll take a look at the Butler week, preview Georgetown, and talk a little bit about the Big East as a whole. So take us away with Butler, Sondick.
So it was a combination of guys in between the two games, because seeing a team, even though Butler is not as good as UConn, it's tough. And I think the first matchup, obviously, was a home game, despite it being at the XL Center, still a home game, obviously. And this game was rescheduled. It was supposed to be the first, I believe, like they tried to ring in the new year and then COVID got in the way. But it was impressive. Beating a team back-to-back is not easy, especially in as good of a conference as the Big East has been this year. And they delivered. The second game, the first half, obviously, came out a little bit slow, a little ugly, but on the back of Tyrese Martin, and he kind of just took over, had the ball in his hands. He was like, I'm the best player on the court, taking threes, driving it inside, doing everything. So I thought it was impressive. I don't care who it's against. It's another Big East win. We don't have to play Butler again, maybe till MSG in March. But I was pretty pleased. I was happy that they could string two together. And I didn't really feel too stressed in the second halves of either game. First half on the road, a little iffy, but that's completely normal. And to come out on top is definitely big for the team.
I like the way they played in the first half on Tuesday and route to a 76-59 victory. They just were playing with a purpose, built a good lead, double-digit lead going into halftime. And Andre Jackson, his first double-double. Now, I know you'll talk a little bit more about him later. RJ Cole poured in 17 more points. And like you said, it didn't feel stressful in the second half. Now, you move to Thursday, and it's tough to play the back end of the home and home on the road. It's hard to win on the road in college basketball. It doesn't matter where you're playing. It doesn't matter who you're playing. If you're playing a true road game, it's tough. And it showed in the first half. It was probably their worst offensive half of the year. But then Tyrese Martin explodes in the second half. 25 points in the second half alone en route to a career high 27. And also, Hurley said before the game that they needed to get Isaiah Whaley going again. And they did exactly that. 11 points, 10 boards. That's the wrench we're used to. And that's the wrench we got to see if this UConn team wants to make a deep run, right?
Absolutely. We have depth at the big position, obviously anchored by Sanogo, but the value of Whaley, it's always going to be there until he leaves at both ends of the floor. And if he's playing well on the offensive end, I think it's a bonus. That's not his job. Obviously, it's great when we have a couple buckets and finish around the rim. Yeah, you take those because he's a Division I basketball player. He should be finishing dunks. He should be finishing layups. But anything we get on the offensive end is bonus. And on the defensive end, I mean, he's just a huge body, and he's the reigning defensive player of the year in the conference. So to have him firing at all cylinders is huge, because UConn can run those lineups with him and Sanogo out there, and they're overwhelming, and they can rest Sanogo and put Whaley out there, and it works well also. So never a doubt on Whaley's value, never a doubt on how much he means to the team, and to see him get going now is really a good thing to see for this squad.
Yeah, he was just in a little bit of a funk and then breaks out. And UConn took the second game of that Butler week, 75-56. So comfortable margins in both definitely helps things like UConn's metrics, their net ranking, KenPom, things like that. If they only won by, say, 6 or 8, doesn't look great. But nobody needs to know that they struggled in the first half, that they won by 19. So we'll turn the page to Georgetown. Hoya's probably the worst team in the Big East this year. They've lost 5 straight. They sit at 6-10. And just winless in the Big East Conference so far at 0-5. They did, in fact, beat Syracuse earlier in the year, but Sondick, that means just about nothing this year, as Syracuse sits under 500 as well. So UConn enters the game tonight 17-point favorites. Vegas feels pretty solid about this one. Georgetown did lead against Villanova at the half this past weekend, and as we all know, there's no cupcakes in this league. They did win the Big East tournament last year, but this is a different team. This team is really struggling. Your thoughts on the Hoyas?
Seeing that 0 in the win column in the conference play spooks me, because no matter how bad they are, and this might be a freezing cold take, and I'm okay if it is, they're not going to go winless in the conference. And care about the spread, and neither should we, because it doesn't really matter. I mean, UConn was heavy favorites against St. John's and had their chances to pull away, kept them in it. St. John's within 5. It felt like the whole game. And then they push. We open our eyes and we're in OT, and obviously they pulled away in OT. But my point is, like you said, there's no cupcakes. They were beating Villanova. They were down 3 to Providence on the road, so they don't care about Gamble being packed. Obviously, it's a hostile environment for them, but they shouldn't take this lightly. I know we have some ranked teams coming up. Nova is on the horizon. Marquette, who is ranked, on the horizon again, looking for revenge because they think they're good enough to beat us because they're right behind us in the rankings and they've had quality wins. We'll get to more Big East talk later, but they can't take this lightly. I don't care about Georgetown's record, and I don't really care if they don't cover. They can win by 3, they can win by 5, they can win by 20. They just got to win and keep this momentum going hot when you're playing the quality opponents, and let it ride from there. I think anyone can hang with anyone, like we've seen. So can't take it lightly. And especially seeing the 0 in the win column for conference play, they're desperate. That's scary to me. I mean, that's scary. I don't know. Like, why not? They had a mentality. Why not us? They could win this game and then go back to bed the rest of the season. But as long as they get that one win, no one wants to go winless in conference play. It's really hard to do. So all hands on deck tomorrow night.
Yeah, it spooks you a little bit. I don't necessarily feel the same worry as you. I think UConn's playing pretty well right now. They're at full strength. But one player definitely to watch for tomorrow is Aminu Mohammed, talented freshman for Georgetown, averaging over double figures every game. The supporting cast around him just isn't there anymore. No more Qudus Wahab. It's just the magic that they had going into the Big East tournament. Not necessarily going into it, but during the Big East tournament last year, it's not there anymore. And honestly, if Georgetown continues to slide this year, there's going to be questions about their head coach, Patrick Ewing's capability to handle the role as head coach, similar to other former coaches we've seen. Penny Hardaway at Memphis, that team's struggling too. It's not as easy to be a coach as many may think. So we'll take a look around the Big East. 5 teams in the AP poll yesterday when it was released. Number 14, Villanova. Number 17, Providence. UConn checking in at 20, a jump of 5 spots from last week. Xavier at 21 after a loss to Marquette, and then Marquette jumps into the rankings at 22. Marquette, probably the hottest team in the conference right now, but UConn sits in the 4th seed if the season were to end today. There's a couple teams really surging. Providence, first of all, red hot. First place, 7-1 in the conference after a win over Butler. Butler's had a ridiculously crazy schedule. I mean, you play UConn back-to-back and then have to come back to the East Coast to play Providence. That's brutal, as Hurley would say. Brutal. And then you got Villanova at 7-2 in second place. They're just chugging right along. Maybe not the best Villanova team ever, but they're 7-2 halfway through conference season. And then Marquette, 6 straight wins, including 4 over ranked opponents. They sit in 3rd place at 6-3 in the conference. Now, UConn does have the road win at Marquette. That could bode well later in the season, whether it's in net rankings, quad 1 victories, or even just head-to-head, tiebreakers. But the Huskies do have a loss to Providence, who they're still chasing. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the standings. But before we wrap up, I want to hear quick thoughts about just the state of the Big East right now. And then after that, we're going to jump into some high and lows around the roster.
Big East is deep, man. We kind of knew it going into the season. I don't think people expected Marquette and Providence to be good. I think people saw us up there. Then obviously Nova, they're the favorite every single year. And that's despite how good UConn's future looks. I don't think that's ever going to change because it's Jay Wright. They have the most recent success. They were winning chips when UConn was in the American, losing to Tulane, Tulsa, and whatnot. But it's really deep, and I think that's a great thing. You don't want a weak conference. You don't want any easy wins. I mean, the American this year. Think about if UConn was still in the American. Like, yikes. Besides Houston, it's crickets. I mean, Memphis, like you said, they underachieve every year. It's not that much of a shock. They'll win games when they need to. They'll be in bubble contention as always because they'll get hot and play. There's a lot of cupcakes in the American. We're talking about cupcakes, but it's good. It's going to strengthen UConn come playoff time, assuming they make the tournament, which is never good to assume. But if they keep playing the way they do and they keep hanging around the top 25, there's a tournament berth waiting in the wings. So I think it's great. I love seeing competitive games. you throw on a Big East game, you know it's going to come down to it, no matter who the matchup is. So it's exciting for sure. It's not the same Big East I remember with. There's a couple different teams. I mean, there's no Syracuse, but like they're no threat to being competitive this year. So I think it's great. I love it for UConn. I love it for college basketball, and I love it for the conference as a whole.
And Georgetown may come in winless tonight to Stores, but it's still so much better than taking on a team like SMU or Tulsa or Eastern Carolina, who nobody cares about. Georgetown is still Georgetown. You can't change that. And so if they stink, okay, they stink, but they still could come in and beat you. They're still Georgetown. They still have that brand recognition. So it's just way more fun, way more natural to be playing them, in the late January than it would be to be playing one of those teams from the American. So now we'll wrap up. We're going to do a little bit of highs and lows across the roster. So I want to hear who's hot and who's not right now.
He's as hot as they come from three, and I never thought I'd be saying this, but it's Andre Jackson. Didn't miss a three in the Butler week. Had that stretch on the Tuesday game when he made 3 in a row, which was pretty sick. I had me screaming at the TV, shoot the ball, Andre. But I mean it, because if he's making threes and he's confident enough to shoot that changes everything for this team. He's been hot, and he didn't have it a ton from the field on Thursday, but he does everything. He's the best. He's not the best at anything besides flying, but he's good at everything. Now that he can shoot threes, shooting 54% from the three this year. Last year it was like 11. And granted, he's hurt.
It's not a small sample size this year either at this point.
No.
He's up about 20 shots. That's not insignificant.
So I love what I'm seeing from Andre Jackson. He's a facilitator. He's a great rebounder. He's averaging 8 boards a game. He does everything, and he's the Huskies' engine, really. He's not their leading scorer ever because Sanogo, Martin, Cole, and he's not their best defender, Sanogo, Whaley, but he does everything well, and I love what I'm seeing from him. But I knew that coming into this year, there were high expectations because he didn't play great last year, but he's more than up to the task this year. He's looking like a pro ball player out there, and shoot the ball, Andre. Shoot the ball.
The other thing about Andre Jackson is he's just starting to become more and more consistent now. Early in the season, we called that one game for WHUS where he exploded. And it was sort of highs and lows from him, highs and lows. Now he's starting to play at that high level all the time. And for a guy like him, who, like you said, can just do so much, that's so valuable for a team like UConn. He may not be the best at any one thing, but he's so skilled at every single thing. And like Hurley says repeatedly, he's in the gym all the time, along with Adama Sanogo, who you think is also hot right now.
It's such a basic answer. It's kind of a cop-out because he's been great all year, but the guy's unreal. I mean, the Big East Player of the Year, I think, is going to go to him if he stays healthy. Like I said in our beginning of the show, whole lot of bias behind that original statement, but I'll stand by it because his plays backed it up. Not only is he a great scorer now, but he's a board machine. I mean, he had 18 against St. John's, double digits against Butler, because a lot of the time he's the largest man on the court. And I say man because he is a grown man.
Hold on. He didn't just have double figures against St. John's. He had 26 and 18. And then what did he do the next game against Butler? 13 and 15. And then one more time on the road at Butler, 15 and 9. That's pretty darn good for Adama Sanogo.
I'll take that. And not only that, the offensive end, a monster. He's blocking shots like crazy. And that wasn't originally his role. Of course, a guy that size, and UConn over the years has had shot blockers on most of the best teams they've had. But it's ridiculous because you go into the paint, and even when Whaley's not on the court, you got to be worried that it's going to get swatted into the third row. He's an absolute beast. When you talk about hot, you can't not put him in the conversation. Best player on the team, best player in the conference. I'm just excited to see what's next because he gets on the court and he's literally dominant. So
let's flip sides right now. You say who's cold, and then I'm going with who I think is hot right now. Then we'll wrap it up.
It's kind of a lame one because I feel like he should get more minutes, but without these minutes, he can't heat up. I got to go with Cook. He hasn't played that much, especially during the Butler week, and his production's been limited. And it's tough because his freshman year, he was a beast. He was the spark plug for UConn, no question. Fan favorite still, no matter how much he plays or how well he plays. But without those minutes, it takes him a while to heat up. And I think when he's played this year, he's done a decent job. He shoots the ball well from three, really well from three, actually. I mean, him and Andre percentage-wise, obviously it's not a ton of attempts, but he shoots the ball with confidence when he's open. And I just got to see more. I really got to see more. And that's not all him because he doesn't say when he gets in the game or not. And I feel like Hurley needs to put him in spots that he can thrive in, but you can't hold on. He has to have some legs under him because he's going to play when the games get tighter, when we get to the conference tournament, and hopefully when we get to the NCAA tournament. I need more.
Yeah, and Coach Hurley said at media availability yesterday that he wants to be able to play Cook more, but he, quote, has to impact things more, whether that's attacking the glass, blocking more shots, hitting more shots, being more involved on the offense. But to me, Hurley also said that the matchups against Butler weren't great for Cook. Now, you're not going to have great matchups for guys all the time, but you've got to get a Cook a little bit more into the rotation, a little bit more a part of things because he's so talented. He looks like he's fully healthy from his Achilles injury. He blocks everything still. You just got to get him more into a flow of things. He can't play 3 minutes in the first half, be a +6, and then not play the second half. That's not going to work for a Cook. Now, for me, who's hot right now is Tyler Paulie. Over his last 3 games, you got both those games against Butler and one against St. John's. He's 9 of 17, and he's 7 of 14 from deep. So 50% from 3 over the last 3 games after he was slumping for a little while. He's also averaging over 8 points per game in those 3 games. And now that is what you need from the reigning 6th man of the year in Tyler Paulie. So UConn gets Georgetown tonight, 8:30 p.m. CBS Sports Network for this one, no Fox Sports for this. And then the Huskies will travel out to Chicago against DePaul, who's better than their record shows, I think, for a matchup on Saturday afternoon. Thanks for tuning in to Run It Back, everybody. Huskies take on Georgetown and then DePaul, looking to keep on racking up the wins in the Big East before the real tough competition arrives on their schedule. For Jacob Sondick, I'm Noam Watt. See you next time.